This is why narcissists are alone, no friends, and no relationships. Have you ever wondered why narcissists, who seem so confident and charismatic on the surface, often end up completely alone with no real friends or lasting relationships? It's almost paradoxical, isn't it? On one hand, they appear to have all the qualities that people find attractive: charm, confidence, and an undeniable presence. But on the other hand, when you take a closer look, you'll often find that they struggle to maintain healthy, lasting connections with others. It's a puzzle that many people find themselves trying to solve, especially when they've been hurt by a narcissist's toxic behaviors. The truth is, narcissists often end up isolated because their actions and mindset gradually push others away, despite the superficial allure. In this video, we're going to dive deep into the reasons why narcissists find themselves alone, without true friends, and without stable relationships. If you've ever been confused or frustrated by a narcissist's behavior, or if you've found yourself trying to make sense of why they push people away despite their need for attention, you're not alone. You'll be surprised at how their behaviors, no matter how charming they might seem at first, end up being the very reasons they're rejected by others. Before we dive deeper into the psychology of narcissism and explain exactly why these individuals often end up alone, be sure to like, subscribe, and share this content with anyone who might be struggling to understand narcissistic relationships. By sharing this knowledge, we can help raise awareness and encourage more people to protect themselves from toxic individuals. So, let's take a closer look at why narcissists find themselves isolated and without the very things they claim to want the most: true friendships and lasting relationships. To begin, it's important to understand that narcissism is not just about arrogance or self-love. It's a deeply rooted psychological condition. Narcissists have an inflated sense of their own importance, a need for excessive admiration, and a lack of empathy. They see others primarily as tools to meet their own needs, whether that's to boost their self-esteem, fulfill their desires, or make them feel superior. While this might initially make them seem magnetic or even charismatic, these very traits make it impossible for them to maintain meaningful long-term connections with others. The first and most glaring reason narcissists are often alone is that they lack emotional depth. At the core of a narcissist's behavior is an intense insecurity that they desperately try to hide behind a facade of confidence. They crave attention, admiration, and validation from others, but they do not know how to form deep, genuine emotional bonds. Relationships, whether romantic or platonic, require mutual care, respect, and vulnerability. Narcissists are not capable of offering these qualities because they are too focused on their own needs and desires. When you interact with a narcissist, you may feel like you're constantly giving while receiving little in return. The relationship feels one-sided because, for the narcissist, relationships are not about shared experiences or emotional connection. They are about what they can get from others. They will use people to bolster their self-image, often discarding them once they've outlived their usefulness. This cycle of exploiting others and failing to reciprocate leads to a lack of true friendships and lasting connections. Over time, others begin to see the narcissist's true nature, and they pull away, leaving the narcissist isolated. Another reason narcissists are often alone is that they lack empathy, a key trait that is essential for any healthy relationship. Empathy is the ability to understand and share the feelings of others. It allows us to connect on a deeper emotional level, to care about someone else's well-being, and to offer support when needed. Narcissists, however, are emotionally detached from others. Their lack of empathy means they are incapable of understanding or genuinely caring about how their actions affect the people around them. When a narcissist enters into a relationship, they do so with a self-centered mindset. They see the world through the lens of their own needs, desires, and feelings, and they expect others to cater to them. This self-centeredness makes them incredibly difficult to get along with. They often disregard the feelings of others, making hurtful comments or acting in ways that disregard the emotional needs of their friends, family, or partners. Over time, people get tired of the emotional neglect and manipulation and begin to distance themselves from the narcissist. Narcissists will often justify their actions by blaming others, deflecting responsibility, or accusing others of being overly sensitive. This lack of accountability only further alienates them from others. When people see that a narcissist is unwilling to consider their perspective or take responsibility for their actions, they begin to withdraw. This ultimately results in the narcissist losing any meaningful relationships they might have had. Narcissists are also often alone because they are unable to handle conflict in a healthy way. In any relationship, disagreements or conflicts are inevitable. The key to maintaining a healthy relationship is the ability to resolve conflicts in a respectful and constructive manner. However, narcissists are not equipped with this skill. When they are challenged, criticized, or confronted, they typically respond with anger, defensiveness, or even rage. They lash out rather than engage in a calm and thoughtful discussion. This inability to handle conflict stems from their fragile ego. Narcissists cannot tolerate criticism or rejection, and any form of disagreement feels like a personal attack. Instead of taking responsibility or engaging in a productive conversation, they will often escalate the situation, resorting to gaslighting, blaming, or name-calling to deflect the focus from their own behavior. Over time, this makes being in a relationship with a narcissist exhausting and emotionally draining. People grow tired of walking on eggshells, trying to avoid conflict, and fearing the narcissist's explosive reactions. As a result, they begin to distance themselves, and the narcissist ends up alone. The narcissist's need for constant admiration and validation also creates unrealistic expectations in their relationships. They expect others to constantly boost their self-esteem and shower them with attention. However, no one can fulfill these needs indefinitely. Over time, the narcissist's demands become unreasonable, and the people in their lives start to feel overwhelmed and undervalued. Friends and partners begin to feel as though they are constantly giving, without receiving anything in return. This one-sided dynamic is unsustainable, and eventually, people grow tired of being treated like emotional caretakers rather than equals in the relationship. What happens then? The narcissist, who is already prone to feelings of emptiness and insecurity, begins to feel rejected and abandoned when others start to pull away. Ironically, their need for constant admiration and validation, combined with their unrealistic expectations, makes it impossible for them to keep any relationship alive for the long term. Another factor contributing to a narcissist's isolation is their lack of emotional intimacy. True emotional intimacy requires vulnerability, openness, and mutual trust. These qualities are not only difficult for narcissists to provide, they are often terrifying to them. Being emotionally vulnerable means exposing parts of themselves that they have worked so hard to protect. Narcissists are terrified of being seen as weak or flawed, so they build a wall around their emotions. Instead of forming close, trusting relationships, they keep others at arm's length, only letting people in when it serves their needs. When someone does manage to break through their emotional walls, the narcissist typically betrays that trust, either by taking advantage of the person or by manipulating them to serve their own needs. This betrayal of trust ultimately leaves the narcissist alone because no one wants to be involved in a relationship where their emotional needs are neglected or manipulated. Finally, it's essential to recognize that narcissists can't form lasting relationships because they lack the ability to love in the true sense of the word. They might be capable of feeling infatuation or possessiveness, but love, as most of us understand it, requires a deep connection, selflessness, and care for the other person. Narcissists are fundamentally incapable of these qualities because they are too preoccupied with their own needs and self-image. They might enter into relationships for validation or admiration, but once they've won the person over, they lose interest and move on to the next source of supply. This cycle of idealization and devaluation leaves them with a string of broken relationships and, ultimately, loneliness. In conclusion, narcissists are often alone and without friends or lasting relationships because their behavior creates a toxic environment where genuine connections can't thrive. Their inability to empathize, their need for constant validation, and their emotional manipulation all contribute to their isolation. They may have moments of charm and charisma, but these are merely superficial traits that mask deeper insecurities and emotional issues. Ultimately, their self-centeredness, lack of vulnerability, and emotional detachment drive others away, leaving them isolated in a world where they can never truly belong. Thank you for watching and for taking the time to explore the complex world of narcissism. If you found this video helpful, please like, subscribe, and share it with others who might be struggling to understand narcissistic behavior in their own lives. It's important to spread awareness about narcissism and its effects so that people can protect themselves and find healthier, more fulfilling relationships. If you've experienced narcissistic abuse or have been impacted by narcissistic behavior, remember, you are not alone and healing is possible. Stay strong, stay informed, and take care of yourself. 10 insane eating habits only narcissistic abuse survivors understand. Have you ever found yourself in a relationship where your eating habits seemed to spiral out of control, where every meal felt like a minefield and the mere act of eating became emotionally exhausting? For survivors of narcissistic abuse, food can become much more than just a means of sustenance. It can be a tool of control, manipulation, and emotional torment. Narcissists are masters at creating environments of instability, and that instability often extends to the very act of eating. If you've ever felt like your eating habits were hijacked by someone else's emotional needs, you're not alone. In fact, you may have experienced some of the insane eating habits that narcissistic abuse survivors understand all too well. Food should nourish the body, but for those who have endured narcissistic abuse, it often becomes a battleground. From bizarre control tactics to emotional manipulation, the relationship between narcissists and food can be twisted in ways you might not even realize until much later. So why do narcissists have such a strange hold over their victims when it comes to eating? Why do their eating habits seem to go from perfectly healthy to completely chaotic? In this video, we'll take a deep dive into the 10 most insane eating habits that only survivors of narcissistic abuse truly understand. These behaviors are not just quirky. They reflect a pattern of control and manipulation that can profoundly affect your relationship with food and your body. Before we start, if you've ever found yourself in a relationship with a narcissist, this video is for you. Please take a moment to subscribe, like, and share this content so we can raise awareness and provide support to those struggling with the aftermath of narcissistic abuse. Survivors of narcissism often feel isolated, but you are not alone. Let's explore these eating habits together and shed some light on why they occur. 1. The constant food policing. One of the most disturbing eating habits that narcissistic abuse survivors understand is the constant food policing. Narcissists often treat food as a means of exerting control over their victims, scrutinizing every meal, snack, or even the desire to eat or not eat. If you've ever had a narcissist comment on what, when, or how much you eat, whether it's too much, too little, too healthy, or not healthy enough, you understand just how invasive this behavior can be. Food becomes a weapon. A narcissist may claim to care about your health, only to demand that you eat in a way that suits their needs. They may try to impose strict diets on you, not because they genuinely care about your well-being, but because controlling your eating habits gives them a sense of power. They might even go so far as to monitor your food intake, accidentally sabotage your meal plans, or make passive-aggressive comments when they don't approve of your choices. For the survivor, this constant policing creates a toxic relationship with food. You may start to feel anxious or guilty about eating, knowing that any choice you make will likely be criticized. The narcissist's need to control your food intake isn't about your health. It's about making sure you feel small, uncertain, and dependent on them for approval. 2. The silent treatment during meals. Ever found yourself sitting at the table in silence, not because you had nothing to say, but because the narcissist had decided that you weren't worthy of a conversation? One of the most emotionally draining eating habits for survivors is the silent treatment during meals. It's an insidious form of control that can leave you feeling isolated and disconnected while you're simply trying to enjoy a meal. During this silence, the narcissist is